With approval processes, you set them on an object and you give it criteria. This is so somebody else can approve the record. You can have verification, so it allows another eye to be on there, and then you can have a documented process of saying yes, this record was approved. Most commonly gets used on opportunities, but it can be used on other objects as well. When you set up your approval process, you have to give it a name, you can give it a description, you can specify entry criteria or not. Later on, we'll get into the different steps and how you can specify criteria there for as well. You can specify who can edit the record. You can say the administrator or the current approver, or just the current approver as well. This just means that when it's being approved, the administrator can always come and modify the record, or the current approver can come in here and modify the record too. Sometimes it needs to happen during the approval process, but everybody else, the record is locked too. We have our approval assignment email template. So if you want to assign email template, you can also use email actions later on to send emails out. So if you want to assign an email template right out of the gate, so when something gets assigned, you can use that template, and the approval post template as well if you wanted that. So once something gets approved, you can use that template as well. You can use the actions to do that as well. The active status tells if it is active or not. Next, automated approver determined by a manager or record submitter. You can determine how you want that the next approver to be determined. You can also allow submitters to recall approval requests. So if this is checked, it means that if I submit something for approval and I change my mind, I can recall it. That's not checked. Once I submit something for approval, I have to wait for the approver to either approve or reject that approval process, that approval for that record. With the approval process, we have our initial submission actions. So once an approval process gets submitted, what do? Typically, we lock the record from being edited. We want to make sure that nothing's getting changed on this record while we go through the approval process, because we want to approve what we know. And then we can set up our different steps. We have our first step here where we give it a name. We just want to say if the opportunity is less than 500, we want to go here, else go to the next step. So if it's less than 500, we're going to do this step. If it's greater than 500, or greater than equal to, we're going to go to the next step. And we specify that if it's less than 500, I'm going to be the approver. And if it's greater than 500, somebody else will be the approver. This isn't an ideal approval, but it's an approval nonetheless. Once it goes through all the steps, there are some approval actions that can take place. We have our final approval actions, our final reject actions, and our recall actions. It's important to note that the final approval actions, you can change the record lock. You can say it stays locked. Locked means that nobody can modify it. If it is unlocked, it means it can be modified again. Final rejection actions, typically you want to unlock the record so people can change the record. But there are cases where maybe you can only go through approval process once. If it gets rejected, then it has to stay in that status. And then also for the recall action, if you're going to recall something, you're probably going to want to unlock it. Otherwise, you can't modify the changes and make changes to the record to submit it again for approval. With approvals, you can unlock or lock a record. A reject typically unlocks, recall typically unlocks. With approval, you can lock or unlock the records. Locking just means that nobody else can modify it except for the current approver. And then all the actions that are possible with all the actions that are possible with approval processes are email alerts, task creation, field updates, and outbound messages. These are all the same ones that you have in workflow rules.